Every single day, without exception, the United States Navy is operating in every ocean on Earth simultaneously. Right now, as you watch this video, there are American warships in the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, the Mediterranean, the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, the Arctic, and dozens of straits, channels, and waterways in between. There are American submarines beneath the surface that nobody can see and nobody can track. There are American carrier strike groups capable of launching hundreds of aircraft sorties within hours. There are supply ships, surveillance aircraft, and naval special operations forces positioned across the globe in a network of power that has no precedent in human history. No empire, no nation, no military force has ever projected naval power across the entire planet simultaneously the way the United States does today. Not the British Empire at its peak, not ancient Rome, not the Mongols, nobody. The question is, how? How does one nation control the world's oceans? What does that actually mean in practical terms, and what would happen if that control were ever seriously challenged? Today, we are going to answer those questions in detail. We are going to go through the physical infrastructure, the technology, the doctrine, the history, and the strategic logic that together create what military analysts call American maritime dominance. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why the United States Navy is the most consequential military force in the world and what it would take to change that. To understand how the United States came to dominate the world's oceans, you need to go back to 1945. When World War II ended, the United States possessed the largest and most powerful navy in human history. Over 1,000 warships, hundreds of aircraft carriers of various sizes, tens of thousands of aircraft, millions of trained naval personnel, and critically, a global network of bases, supply depots, and strategic positions acquired in the process of fighting the war across two oceans simultaneously. At the same time, every other major naval power had been devastated. The Imperial Japanese Navy was completely destroyed. The German Navy was at the bottom of the ocean. The British Royal Navy, once the greatest naval force the world had known, was exhausted, depleted, and operating in a nation economically ruined by 6 years of total war. The Soviet Navy was primarily a coastal defense force with no global reach. The United States stepped into a vacuum. There was no one else who could police the world's sea lanes. And it turned out that policing the sea lanes was enormously valuable. About 90% of all international trade moves by sea. The oil that powers Asia's economies travels by ship through the Strait of Malacca and the South China Sea. The goods that fill European stores travel through the Suez Canal and the Mediterranean. The raw materials that feed American industry arrive by container ship. Whoever controls the sea lanes controls the flow of global commerce, and whoever controls the flow of global commerce holds enormous leverage over every nation on Earth. The United States made a strategic decision in the years after World War II to use its naval dominance to guarantee freedom of navigation for all nations in exchange for those nations accepting American leadership of the international order. This bargain, often called Pax Americana or the American-led liberal international order, has been the foundation of global stability and economic growth for 80 years. The U.S. Navy is, in a very real sense, the physical enforcement mechanism of the entire global economic system. The physical foundation of American naval dominance is its basing network, and the scale of this network is something most people never fully appreciate. The United States maintains military installations in over 70 countries around the world. Of these, dozens are naval or have significant naval components. Let us walk through the most important ones. In Europe, the United States maintains Naval Station Rota in Spain, which serves as the primary hub for U.S. naval operations in the eastern Atlantic and Mediterranean. Naval Air Station Sigonella in Sicily is the center of American maritime patrol and surveillance operations across the Mediterranean. Naval support activity. Naples serves as the headquarters of U.S. Naval Forces Europe and Africa. These bases allow American ships and aircraft to operate across the entire European theater without ever needing to return to the continental United States. In the Middle East, Naval Support Activity Bahrain is the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet, which oversees operations across the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea, and parts of the Indian Ocean. This is the command that ensures the free flow of oil from the Persian Gulf to the rest of the world. The Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 20% of all globally traded oil passes, is within the Fifth Fleet's area of responsibility. In the Pacific, the network is even more extensive. Naval Base Guam serves as a major hub for submarine operations and surface ships in the Western Pacific. Naval Base Yokosuka in Japan is the home port of the USS Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group and serves as the headquarters of the Seventh Fleet, which covers the Western Pacific and Indian Ocean. Naval Air Facility Misawa in Japan hosts maritime patrol aircraft that monitor Russian and Chinese naval activity. Naval Base Kitsap in Washington State is home to the largest concentration of nuclear-armed submarines in the world. Diego Garcia, a small atoll in the middle of the Indian Ocean, is one of the most strategically important pieces of real estate on Earth. The American base there provides a staging point for operations across the entire Indo-Pacific region and the ability to threaten targets from Central Asia to East Africa. This global basing network means that American naval forces are never far from anywhere that matters. A crisis erupts in the Middle East, and within hours, there are American warships repositioning to respond. A conflict begins in Asia, and carrier strike groups that were already in the region can be on station within days. The network turns the world into a space where American naval power is always present or can quickly become present. The aircraft carrier is the centerpiece of American naval power projection, and no discussion of how the U.S. Navy controls the oceans is complete without understanding what these ships actually are and what they can do. An American nuclear-powered aircraft carrier is not really a ship in the way most people think of ships. It is a mobile sovereign territory of the United States, capable of operating anywhere in the world, sustaining itself for months without port visits, and launching full-scale air warfare operations from the middle of any ocean. The flight deck of a Nimitz or Gerald Ford class carrier is roughly 330 meters long and 77 meters wide. Beneath that flight deck are multiple decks containing the crew quarters, maintenance shops, weapons storage, fuel storage, command and control spaces, medical facilities, and engineering spaces of what is essentially a small city. The crew of a carrier strike group, including the carrier itself and its escort ships, numbers in the thousands. The air wing embarked on an American carrier typically includes 40 to 70 aircraft. F-18 Super Hornets are the primary strike aircraft, capable of air-to-air combat and precision strike missions. F-35C, Lightning II stealth fighters are increasingly part of carrier air wings, bringing fifth-generation stealth capability to naval aviation. EI-18G Growlers are dedicated electronic warfare aircraft capable of jamming enemy radar and communications across wide areas. E-2D Hawkeye aircraft provide airborne early warning, extending the carrier's radar coverage hundreds of miles beyond the ship. MH-60 helicopters conduct anti-submarine warfare, search and rescue, and logistics missions. A single carrier strike group can project air power across a radius of hundreds of miles. It can strike targets anywhere within that radius within minutes. It can defend itself against air, surface, and submarine threats. It can sustain operations for weeks or months without resupply if necessary. The United States operates 11 of these strike groups. No other nation operates more than 2 carriers of any type. The combined combat power of 11 American carrier strike groups is something that has no equivalent in the history of naval warfare. The submarine force is the hidden instrument of American naval dominance, and in many ways, it is the most powerful component of all. American nuclear-powered attack submarines operate continuously across the world's oceans, gathering intelligence, tracking adversary ships and submarines, and positioning themselves to execute strike missions if ordered. Because nuclear power gives these submarines essentially unlimited range and endurance, they can follow a Russian or Chinese warship for weeks, monitoring its every move without ever being detected. The Virginia-class attack submarine is the current backbone of the American attack submarine fleet, with more being built every year. Virginia-class boats are extraordinarily quiet, equipped with advanced sensors, and capable of launching Tomahawk cruise missiles from their vertical launch tubes against land targets at ranges over 1,000 miles. They can attack surface ships with heavy torpedoes, hunt and destroy enemy submarines, and deploy special operations forces. The Ohio-class submarines carry an even more specific and terrifying function. 14 Ohio-class boats are dedicated ballistic missile submarines, each carrying up to 20 Trident 2D5 missiles. Each Trident missile can carry multiple independently targeted nuclear warheads. A single Ohio-class submarine has more destructive power than was used in the entire Second World War combined. These submarines are the ultimate guarantor of American security because they ensure that no first strike by any adversary could ever eliminate America's ability to retaliate. 4 Ohio-class submarines have been converted to carry conventional Tomahawk cruise missiles instead of nuclear weapons, giving each one the ability to launch 154 cruise missiles in a single strike. The arrival of an Ohio-class guided missile submarine in any region sends a clear message about American strike capability. Control of the seas requires more than just ships. It requires information. And the United States has built the most comprehensive maritime surveillance network in the world. Space-based surveillance forms the first layer. American military satellites continuously monitor the world's oceans, tracking the movements of foreign warships, detecting submarine activity at periscope depth, and monitoring naval bases for signs of unusual activity. The coverage is not perfect, but it is the most comprehensive any nation has ever achieved. Underwater surveillance is the second layer. The Sound Surveillance System, known as SOSUS, was built during the Cold War as a network of hydrophones on the ocean floor designed to detect Soviet submarines. Modern versions of this system, combined with mobile surveillance platforms, give American commanders the ability to track submarine movements across large areas of ocean. Maritime patrol aircraft form a third layer. The P-8 Poseidon is the current primary maritime patrol aircraft, a militarized version of the Boeing 737 equipped with sensors, sonobuoys, torpedoes, and missiles. P-8AS conduct continuous surveillance flights across the world's oceans, dropping sonobuoys to detect submarines and gathering intelligence on surface ships. They operate from bases in the United States, Japan, Diego Garcia, Bahrain, Spain, and numerous other locations. Together, these surveillance systems give American commanders a picture of the maritime environment that no other navy can match. Knowing where the enemy is often more than half the battle. The logistics network that supports American naval dominance deserves its own discussion because it is something that is almost never talked about but is absolutely fundamental. A carrier strike group at sea consumes enormous quantities of fuel, food, ammunition, spare parts, and aviation consumables. Keeping 11 carrier strike groups and all of their supporting ships supplied and operational across all the world's oceans simultaneously is a logistical challenge of staggering complexity. The Navy's Combat Logistics Force, a fleet of supply ships, ammunition ships, and fuel tankers, provides underway replenishment to combat ships without requiring them to return to port. A carrier can be refueled and resupplied at sea while continuing to conduct flight operations, extending its time on station indefinitely. This capability, which seems mundane, is actually a decisive strategic advantage. Navies that cannot sustain themselves at sea are limited in how long they can operate away from their home ports. The American Logistics Network, combined with the Global Basing Network, means that American naval forces can sustain combat operations anywhere in the world for months or years. No other navy has this capability at anything approaching American scale. The concept of freedom of navigation is central to how the United States uses its naval power, and it is worth explaining what this actually means and why it matters. Freedom of navigation means that ships of all nations have the right to transit international waters without interference. This principle is enshrined in international law, specifically in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. The United States Navy actively enforces this principle, including in areas where other nations assert claims that the U.S. government does not recognize. The most visible example is the South China Sea. China has built artificial islands in the South China Sea and asserts territorial control over vast areas of water that international law treats as international waters. The United States regularly conducts freedom of navigation operations, sending warships through these waters to assert that America does not recognize Chinese territorial claims there. These operations sometimes result in dangerous confrontations between American and Chinese ships. In the Strait of Hormuz, American naval forces maintain a constant presence to ensure that Iranian threats to close the strait never materialize into action. In the Black Sea, American destroyers transit to demonstrate support for NATO allies despite Russian objections. In the Taiwan Strait, American ships transit regularly to assert freedom of navigation and signal American commitment to Taiwan's security. These operations serve a purpose beyond the immediate tactical situation. They are demonstrations of American resolve, signals to allies and adversaries alike that the United States takes its role as guarantor of free navigation seriously and has the capability to back that commitment with force. There are challenges to American naval dominance that are growing in significance, and an honest assessment has to acknowledge them. China's naval expansion is the most significant challenge. As we covered in a previous video, China has built the world's largest navy by number of ships and is rapidly improving in quality. Chinese anti-ship missiles, particularly the DF-21D and DF-26 ballistic missiles, pose genuine threats to American carriers operating in the Western Pacific. The Chinese submarine fleet is growing. Chinese shipbuilding capacity vastly exceeds American capacity. The trajectory of Chinese naval power points toward a more equal balance of power in East Asian waters within the next decade or two. Russia, despite its economic limitations and the setbacks its military has suffered in Ukraine, retains a dangerous submarine force and hypersonic missile capability that complicates American naval planning in the Atlantic and Arctic. Iran, while not a peer competitor, has developed significant capability to threaten shipping in the Persian Gulf, using a combination of fast attack boats, mines, drones, and anti-ship missiles. The 2024 Houthi campaign against shipping in the Red Sea, drawing on Iranian weapons and support, demonstrated that even non-state actors equipped with modern missiles can impose significant costs on naval operations. The Navy faces internal challenges as well. Shipbuilding programs have experienced cost overruns and delays. The fleet has not grown to meet increased demands. Recruiting and retention challenges have affected crew quality at some commands. The collision incidents involving the destroyers USS Fitzgerald and USS John S. McCain in 2017 exposed training and readiness issues that shocked naval leadership. These challenges are real, but they exist within a context of overwhelming American advantages that no nation or combination of nations currently threatens to overcome at a global level. What would it actually take to challenge American control of the world's oceans? The honest answer is that no single nation can do it today, and no combination of nations is likely to do it in the foreseeable future. The accumulated advantages of the United States Navy, built over 80 years of continuous investment and global operations, are simply too deep to be overcome quickly. You would need to build more than ships. You would need to replicate the basing network, the logistics infrastructure, the satellite surveillance systems, the submarine detection networks, the decades of operational experience, and the alliance relationships that multiply American power. You would need to build a global industrial and support base to sustain operations at scale. You would need to develop the institutional knowledge and training systems to produce naval officers and sailors capable of operating complex systems under the stress of actual combat. All of this takes generations, not years. China understands this, which is why its strategy focuses on regional denial rather than global competition. Making the waters near China too dangerous for American ships buys time and creates leverage without requiring China to challenge American dominance everywhere simultaneously. American control of the world's oceans is not permanent by nature. It is the product of deliberate choices, sustained investment, and strategic vision going back 8 decades. It could be eroded if those investments are not maintained or if the strategic vision falters. But for now, in 2026, the United States Navy is the single most powerful military force that has ever sailed the world's seas. Every major shipping lane operates under its protection. Every allied nation conducts its trade, knowing that American warships are available to respond to threats. Every potential adversary plans its strategy, knowing that any conflict involving the United States means facing a naval force of unmatched capability and global reach. This is what it means to control the world's oceans. Not every wave, not every ship, but the framework within which everyone else operates. The guarantee that international commerce will flow, that aggression at sea will be met with consequence, and that the rules of international maritime law will be backed by something more than words. That something is the United States Navy. Thank you for watching Naval Force. If this video helped you understand the scale of American naval power, subscribe and share it with someone who wants to understand how the world actually works. New videos every week.